You have to be very elusive when you move in this world. When you understand who you are and how much you've evolved over the years, you cannot keep underestimating yourself. You know, people see you, people feel your presence. It's otherworldly at this point. And that comes from from so many different factors that shaped who you are today. You know, there's so many different things, but from the strength and resilience that you carry from within, not only generationally, but in your personal life, you've earned your spiritual stripes, so to speak, And so the people around you, they may not necessarily know everything that you've been through, but they can get that feel when they see you. They're like, yeah, that's somebody different, that's someone that really stands out. Especially when you carry a lot of light and you take care of yourself, you take really good care of yourself. You have to be careful too. You have to realize that you cannot move like most people do. Be very careful of whose food you're eating. And I've heard other people talk about this, but somebody brought it up in the comments and it kind of got me thinking, like, you're going to realize that a lot of these so-called restaurants, especially the fast food and stuff, it's full of like, you're not really nourishing yourself, You got to think about it. It's not so much just the ingredients, but it's also the people preparing it. A lot of people don't realize that there is an energy behind who's making your food, right? It's the same way as a person doing your hair, right? The hands, they're touching your head and they're doing all this. That's energy, right? Just like some people don't trust certain people. You just touch in general, anything that touches something that is close to you, that's pretty intimate actually. And as a person preparing your food, that is also intimate as well because they're touching your food and you don't know what they're doing with it. Now fast food, I don't eat fast food. I don't remember the last time I ever had that. And that's the thing. If you love to cook, you don't have to worry about this, But sometimes, sometimes you have a taste for like wings, like chicken wings or something. Like I love chicken wings, and stuff like that. Sometimes you have this, you like to try different things every now and then. You don't always have time to cook. But you have to be mindful of that. And I do want to say is that, I already don't eat out like that. And if I do, there's certain places that I know to stay away from. And that is, well, for one, I learned this from when I was delivering. I didn't even have to eat at these places to know that these people had this weird energy. I would do, food delivery and food and grocery delivery. And so if you do that, you realize that, you start to see patterns in people, especially if you go to a certain restaurant frequently and people are constantly ordering food from there, you're going to see the pattern. So I'm there picking up for someone else, right? So it's not my food, but I still see that these people that work here, they were doing weird things, right? And I'm going to say that there was a time where the manager of that place, he would yell out, red car, because I used to drive a red car. And it's funny because that red car, that was the same red car that got vandalized by my gang stalking neighbor back in 2023, right? So there's that, and this was within the same vicinity, right? This is within the same city that I used to live, and I had, I ended up leaving there because it was just, it's a very low vibrational town. You're gonna notice that certain cities, I don't know what it is, but it's like certain cities carry a lot of negative energy, and when you go there with this positivity, with this light that doesn't seem to go away no matter where you go, it seems to piss people off. And that's what I've noticed too. It's because people look at you like, who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are? And then don't be attractive, because if you look attractive, they're going to really hate you, And so people look at that as, oh, this person never been through nothing. Oh, this person has it easy. They don't realize it's actually quite the opposite. The reason why you glow the way you do is because you've been through a lot, but you learned how to heal and transmute and transform. But they don't know that. They don't realize that. They don't even know that could even take place. They don't even think that that could exist. And so that's why they hate people that emanate light in that, to that magnitude. And it's a very strong presence. And if you are an attractive looking person inside and out, you're going to bring a lot of attention to yourself, and that can be dangerous, especially in a low vibrational kind of area. And you're going to see that there's certain cities you just can't live there. It has nothing to do with fear. No, we ain't afraid of none of these demons, right? We're not afraid of this stuff. It's the fact that it's so dead and dull. Like, you don't want to be in an environment where it's so dead. Like, people have dead energy. Everywhere you walk, people just want to mean mug. People have a problem with themselves, really. But then you come in there and all you do is exist. All you do is breathe and be yourself. You mind your business. And sometimes people hate that. Sometimes people hate attractive people. It could be a thing too. You could be a good looking person. Oh, they definitely hate that. You know, people think that, you know, they talk about pretty privilege and, you know, I mean, that is a thing in some cases. Really, I don't call it pretty privilege. I call it, you know, it's more like, man, I don't even want to say it. But let me just put it to you like this. In this world, being pretty, it doesn't mean anything unless you're willing to get on your knees, basically. And we're not talking about prayer. Okay, so that you get what I'm saying. So you're not willing to sell your soul, basically, for a little bit of extra money. You're not willing to allow somebody to pimp you out, basically, in whatever way that shows up. It doesn't have to actually be you know, in that dynamic. You could get pimped out in these so-called 9-to-5s. And these so-called whatever, even in a relationship, a toxic relationship, whatever you want to call it. If you're not willing to, you know, give into the system, you know, and lose yourself and use, you know, you know where I'm going with this. You know, they will hate you. You know, they will hate, especially the righteous women. This society doesn't like righteous women. Of course not. Especially if they're beautiful. Because you know how much they, you know, in their minds, right? They look at it like, they look at it like a loss of money. Because they're thinking like, oh, you know how much money I could make off of you? That's how they look at it. Yeah. And that's why they become obsessed. Not just the money, but really energy, right? Because energy is also a currency as well. So that's how these so-called, these weirdos, I mean, they don't have to be gang stalkers. They could be gang stalkers, but it could just be weirdos, just weird people that just like to watch you, just looking at you, you know, following you around and stuff. Trying to figure out who you are, because sometimes people get real curious, you know, especially if you look different. And you have to be very elusive. That's the thing. If you know that you're that kind of person that stands out, you have to be very elusive. And some of us have mastered the art of being elusive. You just know how to escape from a situation, or not necessarily a situation, but you just know how to navigate around your surroundings and do what you have to do. And then you get on with your life. And sometimes you move out to a different city, a different part of the state, or whatever the case is, you know? Yeah. So that's why when you come into the picture, you're like I don't know, man. You're like the special guest. They've never seen no one like you. They're like, who is this? You know, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But what you have to realize is that admiration can quickly turn into obsession. And then obsession can turn into hatred and envy when they realize that they cannot capture you, that they cannot conquer you, and they can't possess you and control you ultimately. Because that's really what it is. It's almost like you're that special guest that they don't often see, but you're a person that is just so different. You carry a different energy, and they want that. They don't know what the fuck it is, but it drives them crazy. And so it makes them do weird things, man. And I'm telling you, hey, I can go on and on with the weird things that I've seen, but But yes, you are going to have people that, they become so obsessed with you that they'll follow you to your car. You go to a grocery store, they'll follow you around the aisles. Yeah. I've experienced some weird things, and in one case that I could think of is there was a grocery store. There was a particular individual that would make any excuse to walk in certain aisles that I was in, And I remember I happened to be in the international aisle, and then I kind of heard him say something under his breath. He looked at me and he was like, "Oh, you would be in this aisle." It's like, man, and it's what's so crazy about that? Then shortly after, I went to another store to pick up another order for another person, and I had to wait in line. And guess what? There was some guy was behind me, but he just had to be right behind me singing. And you know what he was saying? He was like, "Ooh, banana boat, ooh, banana boat, ooh." It's like he kept singing that, and then I can tell like your purpose. It's like put two and two together, or you would be in this aisle, international aisle, and then you got singing banana boat. Ooh, so it's like you put those things together. I mean, you can clearly see that's an example of how certain events are orchestrated to kind of like get your attention. That's intended to like, and you might think, man, that's little stuff. That's not a big deal. Of course, I mean, they can get worse, right? But this happens to be the same town where my car window was broken, but that was because of that neighbor that was a hater. Now that's another story in of itself. Honestly, I came to find out that person that vandalized that, the car I used to have, he was jealous of my significant other, but also apparently he kind of took a liking to me, which is pretty crazy because this person, Rainbow, Gay. I can tell you for sure this is a gang stalker because I remember I saw he had a camera by his window where it's crazy because his apartment window is located conveniently in the area where cars would enter to go to the parking lot. So basically, it's like you can't miss it. It's almost like you have to drive down that little driveway to get to the back of the building in order to park. And his window happens to be right there, and he had a camera. I remember seeing a light flashing, so I'm like, yo, yeah. So that's how you know who's coming in and who's coming out of this place, right? But we figured out a way, an alternate route to leave. But yeah, I noticed that. It was a lot of things, man. There's so many details. I can go on and on, but what I'm saying is that, and so he had a lot of rage. And he admitted that actually. You see, he was the type of gang stalker that he really snitched on himself. He liked having conversation. Like he would try to stop us and try to have a conversation always. And it's like what you're gonna realize with these gang stalkers is that they like to dry snitch. They like to confess. It's like they want to confess their sins to you. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, he's gay, but apparently he took a liking to me because I could tell when you're a lady, you just know when a man likes you. You can feel it. And it was the weirdest shit ever because this person got really unclean energy. You could feel it. Very unclean, Like we literally had warning dreams about this person. And we noticed that the energy about this person was unclean. There's so many weird things that happen. I mean, can you imagine being a gang stalker that's, that likes eggplants, and then you realize that you meet a woman and all of a sudden, oh, you like this woman, but you can't have her because she's taken and she's not checking for you either. So even if she was single, she still wouldn't check for you. It's going to bring a lot of anger to a gang stalker. You know what I mean? And then the fact that he's gay, it's pretty wild. Like, whoa. You mean to tell me that a gay dude fell in love with me? That's crazy. And you don't have to do shit. He's destroyed a lot of people's lives. I mean, he from the dry snitching, because this person dry snitched, and from the warning dreams that we've had, it aligns with the events that were happening. Not only that, but the gang stalker had substances, and you got these two guys that are always high. So you put two and two together, and these two guys that are always high are always following us around town. Put two and two together, and you realize, yeah, you know what's going on. Especially because one of them was just staring at me as I went inside of this store to pick up an order. Another thing I want to bring up is that this gang stalker also, he kept offering us food too, in the very beginning, actually. So it's like, that's the thing. And some people might think that you're tripping because you refuse to eat other people's food, especially if you just met them. But as a precaution, really avoid eating other people's food until you actually establish that this person is trustworthy and, they're good people, right? Because you're going to see that that's another red flag too. And of course, now that I know that this person was a gang stalker, because I'm pretty sure that he was paying these dudes with substances, because these guys were high as hell. But he was the one that had the stuff. And, these guys were high as hell, and they were running around town doing stuff. And, and we happen to see them a lot. And it's almost like you feel like, okay, I feel like this person sent them to watch us, and how do we know that he vandalized our car? Well, we know because he basically dry snitched on himself, because he admitted that he didn't admit to doing that to our car, but he did admit that he's done something similar to other people in the past. And that he got the nerve to say, I don't know why they don't want to be my friend. That's crazy. Crazy. Stuff like that. He admitted to having rage. Oh, I have rage, and this person is like 40 years old. Pathetic. You're going to realize that these gang stalkers are pathetic. They have this rage. They have rage because what I learned from this person is that, not that they taught me anything. No, what I learned from the experience is that these people are very pathetic. They're miserable. And a lot of times they have lost a lot of people in their life because they kept messing with them. They mess with a lot of people, a lot of good people. And sometimes they mess up so bad that it's like they are so miserable by the self-inflicted harm that they've created for themselves that they want to take it out on you, And it's so crazy because one thing you're going to realize is that these gang stalkers, they self-destruct, because eventually he started taking the substances and stuff like that, because he started acting different, started acting weird. You're going to notice that they start becoming addicted to their own supply, basically. They start self-destructing, and